we are in a state of decline in terms of economic strength, military power, prosperity, you name it, across the boards, internal cohesion. The Russians, the Chinese, Indians, and others are viewing us as a potentially dangerous and irrational actor on the world stage. I'm sure you've heard Jeffrey Sachs say something similar.
Right.
And they're trying to manage us. By managing, I mean, they want to manage their way through what they think is our decline by avoiding a war. And it becomes more and more difficult. But we failed in Russia. We wanted to go in there, break the country up, rape it for its resources. That's failed miserably. We have not destroyed the national cohesion or unity of Iran. We don't have control of its oil and gas resources. And now we have China, which imports roughly 80% of Iran's oil, very interested in ensuring the Straits of Hormuz stay open. So how far can you press this war with Iran? That leads you to new places, new locations where you can get at the resources that you need to boost the American economy and deal with this enormous sovereign national debt. So yes, I imagine some of the same billionaires who are involved in both the war with Russia and the war with Iran, the Greater Israel Project, are also very interested in Venezuela, because it may be that the other two projects are going to fail. One can argue that it's already failed in Russia. Now the next one is, are we ever going to make any progress in the Middle East? Doesn't look very encouraging right now. So Venezuela then becomes an attractive goal or object in some people's minds.
So from that video, it is very evident, very clear that from this weekend onward, a lot of things would be ignited in this Caribbean. We are to be on full guard from this weekend. You're talking about communication disruptions. You're talking about air disruption, commercial ship disruptions, everything going forward. The United States have designated Maduro foreign terrorist from the 24th of this month. Remember, I told you it will be November to remember, right? Gives them the right, they say, to enter into Venezuela and remove Maduro by any means necessary. Basically, that's what they're saying to you. All of the elements are already in place. All of the elements are already in place. But I will let Colonel Macgregor talk about what is expected in Venezuela. And then we'll come back and have another discussion. Watch this video.
Colonel, how reckless is it, or would it be, I should say, it hasn't happened yet, for the United States to attack, invade, or attempt to decapitate the leadership of Venezuela?
I think it's hard to imagine anything like this happening easily or quickly. I always go back to our intervention in Vietnam, where people landed on the beach, the Marines went inland, the Army eventually came in, and everyone asked immediately, what are we attacking? What's our objective? And after much confusion, they came up with one. I look at Venezuela with a 1,700-mile coastline, 1,380-mile border with Brazil, and a similar border of about roughly 1,379 miles with Colombia. And I asked the same question. What are we going to do? What are these 17,000 troops in Puerto Rico going to do? How do they get there? Once they arrive, what do they do? I see nothing clear or unambiguous about the thinking or planning behind this thing they're calling Southern Spear.
And what would war look like? I mean, would it be boots on the ground? You mentioned an extraordinary number of American troops in Puerto Rico. I believe, correct me if my belief is wrong, there are also 10,000 Marines off the coast of Venezuela in these various ships.
Well, I'd be surprised if they weren't, because the one thing that's easily seized is the international airport, the Bolivar International Airport. It's right on the coast. A couple of thousand Marines should be able to secure that airport very, very easily. Now, what happens after you secure the airport? How do you bring in other troops? Where do they go? Caracas is a little further inland and it's surrounded by mountains and hills. There are some tunnels that go through the mountains and hills into Caracas. How do we get in there? I guess we could fly. I guess you could also have airborne drops. I hear a lot from my friends on active duty about repeating Panama. One of the things that we did in Panama was you had this airborne assault. You have all of these light infantry centric generals at the top of the army that just can't wait to launch another airborne assault. The problem is that Venezuela is not Panama, Judge. Venezuela is huge. You can get in, I think, fairly easily, particularly given the offshore presence that we've got. But then what do you do when you get there, and how do you plan to get out? I mean, unless you can very rapidly install a new government that is friendly to you, that can maintain some level of order in the country, you face the possibility of total disintegration of public order. That means that you have no control over what goes on inside the country, and everyone and their brother can possibly take a shot at you. They've got 30 million people. How many of those will resist is anybody's guess. But I just don't see how the Panamanian experience really informs us in Venezuela. Now, there's also talk about getting into Venezuela, if for no other reason, to stop the supply of oil to Cuba, which has been an important lifeline. That would align with Secretary of State Rubio's long-term goals in the Caribbean Basin. But again, we don't know where all the air and missile defense capabilities are on the ground that the Russians have provided. And we're not even sure that what won't ensue is something similar to the proxy war we've been waging in Ukraine against Russia, that the Russians would turn around and effectively wage a similar proxy war against us in Venezuela, using Brazilian, Colombian, as well as Venezuela paramilitaries to attack us. I mean, the whole thing is a disaster in my judgment.
My friends, it is not going to be easy in Venezuela for the Americans. If they think it's a 1, 2, 3 punch and out, I want you to prepare yourself, because this weekend, communication could be a problem. Airlines could face problems. Ships going through the region could face problems. These things are not fear-mongering. What the United States is doing in Trinidad with their helicopters and all of their things flying over, people can't sleep at night, that is more than fear-mongering. But you will never hear that from some people. But pay attention. From this weekend onwards, it is not going to be nice. Leave your comments in the section below.